Thank you for joining us for this ceasefire moment. We're continuing our study in Matthew. We began this study because of the tension between the grace only and the Torah movements within the Christian group. We're looking at what Jesus had to say and starting back at the beginning. Matthew provides us with a very long discourse given by Jesus. So let's pick up where we left off in Matthew 6, verse 19. Treasure not up to yourselves, disciples, the treasures on the earth where you are, where moth and rust disfigure, and where thieves break through and steal. But treasure up for yourselves, disciples, treasures in heaven where God reigns, where neither moth nor rust does disfigure, and where thieves do not break through or steal. For where your, disciples, treasure is, there will be also your heart. It makes sense that he would say this since we've learned that in Matthew 5 and Matthew 6, he's breaking down the commandments that come from the Old Testament and the beliefs that came from man instead of God, and he's bringing them back to it's about your heart. That's the theme that seems to be playing out here in Matthew 5 and Matthew 6, that it's all about where your heart is. Now let's take a look at the next section. The lamp of the body is the eye. Lamp here is the same word sometimes translated as candle in Matthew 5. If we look back at Matthew 5, it says that you are the light of the world. A city set upon a mount is not able to be hid, nor do they light a lamp and put it under the measure. God is light, is what John 1 says. Light tends to be a picture of our relationship with God and Jesus. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your disciples' eye may be perfect. Now we learned that perfect meant more along the lines of being mature or fully grown. It's not about being perfect in the way that we usually think of it. It's about coming to fullness. If a disciple's eye is mature, all the body shall be enlightened or will be shining and bright. It's talking about the way it would look from the outside. But if your disciples' eyes may be evil, all the body shall be dark. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, the darkness how great. Again, in 1 John 1, God is light and there's no darkness at all in him. The closer we are to God, the more our light would shine. But I was shocked when I did more study into this. I kind of always wondered why he went from talking about treasures to the lamp of the body being the eye. But if you go back and look at Jewish traditions and Jewish beliefs, for them, when they heard this, it made perfect sense, because a good eye was the same as saying that you were generous, and it was seen as a blessing. So if you had a good eye, you were generous and blessing. It meant that you were typically generous to the poor, and you looked out for the needs of others. You went out of yourself. That's why when it says that the lamp of the body is the eye, and if the eye is mature, it means that you're very generous and you think outside of yourself. The opposite, in the dark eye or the evil eye, meant that you were stingy, and it was seen as a curse. When you were stingy or you had an evil eye, you looked out for the needs of yourself. You tended to be greedy. You were blind to those who were around you, and you held tightly to what was yours. If you take those meanings and you apply it to treasure up not for yourself, treasures on earth, it's talking about be generous, to have a good eye, to be thoughtful of others, to give to others, to think of others higher than yourself. Because those are the types of treasures that come from the light of God that's inside of you. Now, these two verses together make perfect sense. We can see that Matthew 6 is continuing with the same concepts that Jesus taught in Matthew 5. That it's about your heart and about loving others. And he's taking the foundation of the commandments and bringing them to a new level, in that if you keep all these commandments and do everything that God says and you're only doing it to check off a box or for other men to see, they're not counted towards your perfection or your growth or your maturity in God's eyes. It's whenever your heart is in it that he starts counting it towards your perfection and your maturity. We'll pick up at verse 24 the next time we get together, but thank you for joining us on this ceasefire moment. We hope you've learned something.